what seems to be anecdotally true, empirically true. And then, if I can look at my YouTube analytics and stuff, I can sort of see who watches my YouTube and stuff. And it tends to be, people above the age of 35, right? Who are, into comic books and this sort of thing. A lot of collectors are, of that sort of baby boom generation. A lot of people I've talked to, in DMs behind the scenes, sorry to be morbid and stuff, always say like, eventually we're going to get to that point where all these baby boomer collections are going to start popping up everywhere. And that's going to tremendously affect, the market or the stability of the market. Do you have any sense of that? Like, as far as, I guess it's kind of coming back into this idea of like, where do you see comics, say, in 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, when eventually all these collections start to pop up? Do you have a sense of what that is, or do you advise certain people as they are maybe in their twilight years? Like, what are they going to do with their comic books? Are they going to just hold them forever? People obviously have a hard time letting go. What's your sort of thought, I guess, on that? This prime demographic of the collector here.
Just from my consulting business, most people, as they get older, of course, their perception changes. When you have more years behind you than you do ahead of you, that's where, I hate to say it, so I'm going to use a term here, that's where shit gets real in your life. That's where you realize, hey, if I want to achieve certain things, I don't have that much time left to do it. And what I can tell you is what I see is people in their 60s and 70s. There are people that wait to get to their 70s, but most people in their 60s start downsizing. And that's why if we look at what's happening just over the last 10 years, you start to see all of these baby boomer collections that are coming on the market, whether it's Lionel trains, whether it's vintage space robots. Western collectibles were a big thing in the early 2000s. After that bubble burst, there were a lot of Western toy collectibles like Hopalong Cassidy, Bonanza, all of these items that were just being dumped on the market. And there were no buyers, or the buyers were very scarce, simply because the generation that grew up with them got to the point where they realized, hey, I have one foot in the grave. If I want to do anything, or if I want to get the money out of this and pass it along to my family or kids, I better sell now. So you're asking a great question. I will tell you, the problem that I see with comic books is a lot of people cut me up on my channel because not only do I collect comic books, I also collect coins and currency. And I'll keep hearing that's a baby boom collectible, coins and currency. And I have to disagree, because when we look at the demographics, believe it or not, comic book collectors are only 5 years younger than that of coin and currency collectors on the aggregate average. There's only a 5-year difference. So if people start dumping comic book collections on the market, coin and currency collections on the market, it's going to happen around the same time. These markets do not exist in a vacuum. And this is where I tell people, in my opinion, coins and currency are at least linked to history. When we look at comic books, they're linked to nostalgia. That makes them inherently more risky when comparing other collectibles and antiques within the alternate asset space known as the antiques and collectibles trade. So that's where I am a little bit more cautious. To a lot of people that come to me and say, hey, Shawn, I'm 65 years of age. I have these key comic books. What do you advise I do with them? I usually will tell them, especially if they've held this stuff now for 10, 15, 20 years, they made a significant amount of money on these items. Sell into the market, let it go.
Yeah.
That's really the best advice. Unless if there's something you want to give to, if you have kids, if you have grandkids that want this stuff, maybe nieces and nephews, if you never had kids of your own, there's something to think about. But overall, there's no point in allowing your family to deal with this collection after you pass, because let's be realistic. The collector has the most knowledge as to what this stuff's worth and what it should sell for on the open market.
Right. Is that what most people who sort of look to your consultation are looking for? Is just sort of, do you find that it's a lot of people that it's like, hey, I have this stuff, I'm maybe in my twilight years, how would you advise me sort of unloading this stuff? Or is it, I guess, across the board?
It's across the board, because believe it or not, I get that. But also I get, Shawn, I made a mistake. I bought into the graded video game bubble when you told me not to. Now, how do I get out of this? I help a lot of people get out of situations that they've got into. in antiques and collectibles. That's why, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, this is the stuff that I hear that the average person doesn't understand. That's why how do I want to say this? I'm bearish against these markets at times, or I'm more of a cynic,
Yeah.
because they see all of those mistakes that are made. And believe it or not, I also have people that come to me and they say, Shawn, I've been collecting for X number of years. I want your advice because I'm thinking of going further into this. I have quite a few people that come to me. Hey, we would like to all have this problem. I inherited $1 million or $2 million. I love comic books or vintage toys. What do you recommend? And usually my advice is not what they want to hear. I tell them, if you want to risk it in this market, I can help you, but just keep in mind there's no guarantees. This is not like putting your money in a well-diversified portfolio. This is inherently risky. I'm happy to help you, but just understand, my brothers and sisters, there's no guarantee how this is going to end up. So that's where I spend a lot of my time too, doing market research, helping people analyze how best to play these markets over the short term and over the long term.
Yeah. Last couple questions before I wrap up with you. Can you maybe also talk about this idea of letting go or getting people to let go? I assume that might be something that you have to get out of certain people, right? You mentioned it a little bit where it's like, okay, if you have a comic book that sells that whatever 10x and you have it, hey, maybe you should sell your copy, but there's with collectibles, obviously it's so emotional. We all have an attachment to the stuff, and it's hard for people to let go. And then even too, like, even if you have, like, you start to get really rare things, or maybe you have an original art page, or maybe you have like, when you go up the scale of like, okay, it's not a Hulk 181 anymore. Now it's a Batman one. And then it's like, okay, it's not a Batman one anymore. Now it's a Chamber Chills 19, or, it becomes increasingly more rare and one of oneness. But there has to be a point where you have to sort of let go, and it gets harder to let go, I imagine, as you sort of go up that scale, like maybe even into like fine art, maybe you go into like the other side of the heritage building, right? You start to like buy up these things that are literal one-on-ones, and so how do you, is that something that you consult with people or talk about a bit?
Absolutely. And it is more of a psychological process. The question that I ask to really find the truth is, I will say, if you sold this item today, would you X number of years, X number of months from now, buy it back again? Are you ready to let it go? That's really what you got to start with. I would never, ever, I want to make this very clear because I get a lot of criticism whenever I do a video like this on my channel, where people come into the comment section, oh, you're trying to get collectors to part with their stuff. That is not what any type of ethical consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade does. That is not even what an auction company is supposed to do. When you meet with somebody who has these items, you have to respect that they have an attachment to these items. That's why, like me, I've been collecting since the age of 12. I have an attachment to all these items as well. I can relate. But you also have to find out, are they ready to let it go? If the answer is yes, then in most cases, depending on how long they had it, what they paid for it, there's no time like the present, depending on their age and their circumstances. Some people have the benefit of time on their side. Some people, not everybody, worships money. So it could just be you have somebody that really loves their Batman 1. They've had it now for 20 years and they're still not ready to let it go. There is no right or wrong answer when we're talking about this. It's basically up to the individual and their current circumstances, both economic and also their health situation. There's a lot of people that come to me, hey, Shawn, these are the ones that break my heart. There's people that come to me and go, I was diagnosed with cancer. I literally have 2 years to live. I got to now clear out 50 years worth of collectibles so my wife and kids are taken care of after I'm gone. And it breaks your heart. It's a real tearjerker as to what you have to do to help that individual. But it's just something that they've come to the realization that this is their circumstance. They've already accepted it. They're coming to you to help them, and you help them the best you can.
Right. Let me finish out then with see if I can get some bullishness out of you, Shawn, for the next few years, or maybe in the collectibles or comics and things like that. I think a lot of people, in my channel, when we talk about stuff, whether it's investing or not investing, or in the even the collecting side of things. Let's say you're somebody who just wants an AF-15. You want to get it, right? But you see prices going down, or hey, like maybe people aren't going to collect comics in 10 years from now. It's like, Should I just wait 10 years to buy it when it's, at zero? Like, what do you kind of see, I guess, in comics for the near future or the medium term or the long term? And how should people sort of advise or how should people sort of operate within their comic investing or collecting journey in the next few years? You got any
Well,
pros
first,
for people?
yeah, let me state this. First of all, it took us decades to get to this point, right? Even
Mm,
2021, the market did pretty much pull back. It did not collapse. So a lot of these items aren't going to go to zero overnight. You guys, if you're watching this channel, you love comic books. I love comic books. You've already seen, if you watch Reserved Investments, I will hold up from time to time a comic book from my collection. I think the most recent video I did was a Batman 232 in CGC 9.6 that I bought from Heritage Auctions recently. So I love this stuff too. What I will tell you is it is not going away anytime soon. In all honesty, you probably have decades. Just understand that the price increases that we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years are most likely not going to be replicated over the next 10, 20 years. I just want to make that very clear. We're probably not going to have the run up like we had before. Now, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just stating, though, your audience doesn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, it looks like this market is pulling back. This guy, Shawn, with Reserved Investments, is stating that after the baby boomer generation dies off, it's going to cause a disturbance in this market. Again, you have 10 to 20 years
yeah.
left for that to occur. So I want to make that very clear. I also want to state I do see opportunity in certain books out there, even still. It's just the books that are more scarce is what I like to go after. So, for instance, I've already brought this up on my own channel. I like Batman 227. I like House of Secrets 92. I like scarce books that may have had a little bit of a run up in price, but they're still scarce compared to your Incredible Hulk 181s or your Amazing Spider Man 300s or your Walking Dead ones. I do not like modern era comic books. And as a matter of fact, I don't like most Copper Age comic books. Even when we get into the Bronze Age, a lot of this stuff is out there in mass. Case in point, I had a guy that contacted me through my YouTube channel. I didn't expect this. He reached out to me. Hey, Shawn, I like to book an hour of your time, but it has to be through Zoom or some type of meeting where I can show you what I found in my storage unit that I was cleaning out. And my jaw dropped. I can pretty much
Mm,
state this because he already gave me permission to talk about this. He had long boxes full, giant size X-Men 1, Amazing Spider-Man 129, Incredible Hulk 180, Incredible Hulk. I mean, the guy hit the mother load.
right.
And these books are all bagged and boarded. I mean, I obviously you can't grade a comic book just on camera. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
You need to
Right.
see it in person. But I'm seeing these books. I guarantee you, there's going to be some in that pile that grades 9.2, 9.4,
Right.
possibly. Maybe if he would get some of them pressed, a 9.6. So I get into arguments with a lot of people that come into my comments. Shawn, this stuff is 50 years old. It's not being discovered anymore. That is incorrect. And I could share even more stories. And all this stuff is coming onto the market. It's going to get graded. It's going to end up at auctions, and the market has to absorb it all. So we're not even at a point where all these collections are absorbed into the market. Then you also have to take into account we have an aging population of baby boomers, Gen Xers as well. I myself am part of Generation X. I'm going to be 3 years away from the age of 50. So we take all that into account. But I still believe that there is opportunity in these markets if you know where to look. Do I think it's going to be as apparent as it was the last 5 to 10 years? No, I don't. But it's still there.